All right, everybody. I decided to make this video because it's just extremely boring to look at videos that claim to understand or provide some understanding of the Unification Church and Myung. And I have been a member of the Unification Church for many years. um, and find, of course, some of the things inside the Unification Church practiced by people or said by people also not easy to understand, but that's, I think, understandable. It's difficult to understand everybody and what everybody is saying and where they're coming from without really understanding them. So I used to be frustrated, so I understand the authors of these videos. But what I cannot accept is this very, I don't know, just very simplistic approach to the matter, very just like outright negative. And this I also understand because I was raised as a religiously indoctrinated as a Marxist atheist, and I was taught to blindly hate religions. But this turned out to be very unfair and very delusional, because it turns out, religions and religious people have valid questions, interesting questions. They search for important and interesting things, and not giving them the opportunity to express why they're searching for things and what motivates them, and without really understanding their lives, it's difficult to understand what they're saying. So dismissing it as nonsense is nonsense. So anyway, just to illustrate, here is, and I decided to search for Myung, just the name Myung, to see what kind of bias is allowed. So it starts off with ABC News right on top, but someone's made great efforts to create a lot of shorts that don't have many views, but there are a lot of shorts that are intended to populate the top part of the searches, and they're obviously anti-religious. So even just by looking at them, we can understand that, by the choice of colors and by the choice of AI graphics, which are very, intended to depict people in a very scary way. Then we have news about the Unification Church, fraction of the Unification Church that obviously fulfills the negative narrative that many want to use to portray the Unification Church. Then we have a cult expert, ex-cult member, who explains how he escaped the Moonies. And it's a very, of course, it's a personal story, so we can respect the personal experiences of the man. But that's what it is. It's a personal story. It's one person whose message has been amplified because it's a negative message. It has been amplified to pretend to represent the experience of everybody else, which is completely untrue. Then we have a BBC documentary We have Al Jazeera in English presenting again documentaries. But what we often see is how media tries to copy negative messages of each other without doing in-depth research or without doing interviews with members or representatives of the Unification Church intentionally, because the task they have at hand is not really to find out, but to find something that would fit certain narrative. And I've participated in TV interviews where from, let's say, half an hour interview, maybe 30 seconds were taken out of context in order to represent the Unification Church in a very negative light. This here is probably one of the most popular interviews, which again, it doesn't give Dr. Todd Grande a lot of credibility to try and cover in a very shallow way the experiences or the life of Sun Myung Moon. I'm sure Dr. Todd Grande would be very unhappy if someone took and shredded his life into pieces to present him as a cult leader, because if someone made an effort, they could surely find enough reasons to say that he is a cult leader because he has 1 million members and he benefits from them. So it's just shallow, to say the least. Like, he tries, the video is 11 minutes, and in this 11 minutes, he tries to kind of brush over the history of of a lifetime of a man, of lifetime of achievements, very highly praised by many people with lifetime achievements. And this gentleman here tries to diminish the persona of Reverend Moon and drag him through the dirt, intentionally trying to portray him as someone who does not deserve any attention or respect, and neither is a valid thing. Reverend Moon, if one studies his life and his words, can conclude that this is a man worth considering seriously. First of all, this is a man that comes from a small village in North Korea, experienced extreme poverty and slavery when he was growing up. What is not mentioned in distinguished Dr. Todd Grande's video is that when Moon was born, Korea was occupied by Japan, and Korean language was forbidden from being spoken. So even this, that his family was Christian and that Christianity was taught in Korea, was not viewed as something that should be advertised and by the Japanese ruling class or ruling system. Shintoism was the religion of the land in this way, and Korea accepted Christianity very late. So the fact that Reverend Moon had an opportunity to study the Bible was a rare experience. And yes, he was inspired by Jesus Christ, but not for the reasons Dr. Todd displays or mentions. And the reasons that, through my research I found out is that Reverend Moon actually really was bothered by the suffering of people around him and had very serious questions. So when he started to research the Bible and pray on the hill near his house, and consequently met Jesus in his prayer, it wasn't out of some kind of selfish plan to create a church and to become a religious leader. He just was hoping to find some answers to why people were suffering. And Jesus had a lot of things to offer through the messages in the Bible and in person when being met in prayer. So, yeah, well, Dr. Todd Grande decided none of this was important to mention. And we can say bend reality, heavily bent reality, to suit a very, very narrow narrative, which, it's a shame, really, Dr. Todd Grande. It's a shame that you did not decide to investigate the matter more thoroughly. So, the doctor in front of Todd Grande, in this case, well, what shall I say? Should it be there or not? Oh, I don't know. It's not deserved in this case to be there because the shallowness of the research. So there are many videos that people watched. Some are by Vice. Vice loves to depict religious movements in negative light. I understand why, because the left or the Marxists, I call them the Marxists because even though they don't all call themselves Marxists, but from my religious indoctrination in a communist country when I was growing up, the things they say are exactly what I was being indoctrinated in. So this was Marxism, and the hate for religions that spurs from Marxism is nothing to be proud of, really. So nothing really objective from what we see. A lot of very critical content, which is really sad because, first of all, Reverend Moon is an extremely successful person by any measure. If one wanted to take the business ventures that he established, if one wanted to take the non-governmental organizations that he established, his influence, global influence, which is, I would say, unparalleled. There are very few people who can have such an influence that don't come from a rich family, well-connected rich family. So this man that comes from a small village in North Korea, that comes from a very poor background, well, not poor, his parents were farmers, but he raised himself to global recognition, and his ideas inspired many, many people of faith, but also people who had no faith. In my case, I had no faith. I was religiously indoctrinated as a Marxist, and I was not even looking for a faith. I was looking for something to criticize, maybe just to kind of spend some time, talking to some people who spoke English at that time, the missionaries that came from the church to Bulgaria. And I found out there's a lot to this person, that even now there is not much genuine information. This channel here, the Sun Myung Moon channel, seems to be speeches and excerpts from within the Unification movement or the Unification Church and by the Unification Church. So anyone who wants to do proper research has plenty of information. So Dr. Todd there obviously never opened this channel. And the ex-cult member expert, anti-cult expert from this video of Vice, he's a very interesting man because he seems to be a cult expert But none of the cult experts in Europe and the USA researched the Marxist atheist cult that I was born in. They don't label Marxist atheist organizations in the West as cults, even though they do worship Lenin, Marx, Karl Marx, and many of their own prophets, which offer revelations, new revelations into the Marxist atheist faith. And I found this actually quite funny or tragic, I don't know, because we, the ones who lived in the former communist countries, thought communism is finished. And that would be the end of the Marxist ideology. But little did we know that Western Europe is being religiously indoctrinated to be Marxist, secular humanist and Marxist. That America is religiously indoctrinated to be secular humanist and Marxist. And that even though the scholars in the West acknowledged that the communist system that was established around the Marxist atheist faith, which is they try to pass as an ideology, but it's based on so many irrational things that only the word faith can properly qualify it, because it's not an ideology. There is very little rationale to it. There is very little attempt to look back in history and say, okay, we've done this wrong and let's try to see how to change. And yes, Reverend Moon actually, he created the Causa movement, the Victory over Communism movement, in which the main goal of this movement, even though many communists see it as an anti-communist movement, but the main goal of the book and the movement was to provide constructive critique of the Marxist atheist ideology and to fine-tune it for success. And to me, as a Marxist atheist, religiously indoctrinated person, I found this quite fascinating, because the final congresses of the Communist Party in my country, they were looking at what the Communist Party had done wrong. So if they had used these constructive critics, I think they would have come to a lot of positive conclusions how to properly reform Marxist atheism, or kind of bend to some of the obvious flaws, which, for example, I found a flaw that I couldn't reconcile myself, and one of the reasons why I was in a personal crisis, as well as the national crisis after the collapse of the communist system, because I realized that Marxism doesn't provide a moral teaching for moral citizens, which dooms utopia to failure. And I thought this was tragic, that the communist system doesn't teach people how to be moral citizens. And this by default means that utopia cannot exist under communism. And it kind of destroys the entire idea and rationale of the socialist and communist vision for the world. So it just, exactly the criticism that Marxists have of other religions, they can be fully turned towards the Marxist atheist faith, in full force addressed to them, and they can be questioned why they do not admit their own errors. Why, when they have not produced a single moral citizen, they consider other religions' fatal errors that are unforgivable, and their own failure to establish utopia somehow is never a subject of criticism. Now, for me, the new Marxists in the West, or actually they would say they're old Marxists in the West, because funnily, now that we have internet, we can find out that Lenin was actually funded by Swiss, German, and American businesses, Marxists, who wanted to destroy Russia. So they funded the Russian kingdom. So they funded Lenin. They armed and funded him to go and destroy Russia. So, and they used Russia to fund and to set up communist movements all over the world. It's like a international mafia organization, criminal organization, ideological, kind of semi-religious, because it goes, around the Marxist atheist belief system. And it's just very, okay, if there are ideals at all, where are they? And if there is constant failure to achieve them, then why not self-critic? And even if you don't criticize yourself as a Marxist atheist for the failures of your obvious global failures of your faith, then why don't you tone down the hate towards other faiths? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, does it?